Rain hammered the neon-lit streets of Harbour City when Rafa Rook Carvalho walked into the Blue Lantern. What if the most feared mafia boss in the city, known for never flinching, collapsed in a restaurant bathroom, bleeding? And the only person who could save him was the waitress he'd just threatened. People didn't say his name out loud. They didn't have to. The air changed when he entered. Even the piano player missed a note. Rook wasn't just a crime boss. He was the kind of man judges suddenly misplaced files around, the kind of man cops greeted like a politician. He ran the docks, the imports, the debt books, everything that flowed through the city's veins. And tonight, he wasn't here for dinner. He was here to collect. At table 9 sat a trembling shipping broker who'd lost a container. Rook's men stood behind him like statues, our hands hidden under suit jackets. Then the waitress arrived with a tray, eyes steady, hair pinned back with the kind of no-nonsense clip that said she'd survived too much to scare easily. Her name tag read, Maren. She set the water down, and her gaze flicked to the broker's shaking hands. Rook noticed the glance. "You should look away," he said softly, like advice. Maren didn't. Instead, she leaned closer, voice low. "If you're going to ruin someone's life, at least do it outside. People come here to forget they're afraid." A few men chuckled. One didn't. Rook. He stared at her like she was a math problem he didn't like. Then, as if the universe had its own agenda, Rook's hand tightened around his glass. Too tight. His jaw clenched. A flicker of pain cut through his expression. He stood abruptly, his chair scraped back. For a second, the whole restaurant froze. Rook took one step, then two, and his breath hitched like someone had punched him from the inside. He made it to the hallway and collapsed, not dramatically, not like a king falling, like a man whose body had just declared war on itself. Nobody moved. Nobody dared. Even his own men stood frozen, caught between protocol and shock. Only Maren saw the blood beginning to soak through his white shirt. Only Maren saw the most powerful man in Harbour City suddenly become just a man. This is just the beginning, and I know you're already invested. You can't leave these characters hanging, can you? Subscribe now so you won't miss how this story unfolds. You're already here. Don't turn away now. Most people would have backed away. Most people would have pretended they didn't see. Maren didn't. She sprinted to the hallway. One of Rook's guards moved to stop her until he saw the blood. A dark stain spread beneath Rook's side, soaking into his white shirt like ink. "What did you do?" the guard snapped, panic hidden behind anger. "I served water," Maren shot back. "Move!" Her hands were steady as she pressed cloth to the wound, eyes scanning. Not a gunshot. Not a knife slash. Something sharp and internal, like a blade had opened him from within. Rook's eyes fluttered. He looked up at her, dazed, furious, almost embarrassed. "You," he rasped. "Yeah," she said, "me, the waitress. Try not to die, my shift ends at midnight." She barked orders like she owned the hallway. "Call an ambulance." Number. Rook's men wouldn't risk a hospital, she knew that. Everyone knew that. "Then get me a clean towel," she demanded. "And a car." "And now." The guard hesitated. Rook's gaze sharpened, pain turning to command. "Do it." And just like that, the city's most feared man was being carried out the back door because a waitress told his soldiers what to do. As they rushed him into a black SUV, Maren climbed in too. "Who invited you?" the guard hissed. She didn't even look at him. "He's bleeding out. That's who invited me." The SUV roared into the rain, taillights vanishing like a warning. Inside, Maren pressed harder on the wound, her fingers slick with blood. Rook's blood. His eyes found hers in the darkness, sharp despite the pain. "Why?" he managed. She didn't answer. How could she explain that she'd seen too many people die while everyone just watched? That fear had ruled her own life once, and she'd sworn it never would again. The car swerved through rain-slicked streets. Running red lights like they were suggestions. The driver barked into a phone. "Prep the clinic, now!" Rook's breathing was shallow, uneven. His hand suddenly closed around Maren's wrist, not threatening but desperate, the grip of a drowning man. "They'll kill you," he whispered. For seeing me like this. Maren met his gaze. Then don't die. Order them not to. Something shifted in Rook's eyes. Not warmth. This man didn't do warmth, but recognition. Like he'd found something rare and unexpected. Blood seeped between her fingers. Too much blood. Whatever was happening inside him wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. This was an attack. And Maren had just put herself in the middle of a war she didn't understand. You've seen how high the stakes are now? But this is just the beginning. What happens next will change everything. Subscribe now and stay with us. You won't want to miss what's coming. Can you walk away now knowing you've come this far? They didn't go to a hospital. They went to a private clinic hidden behind an antiques storefront. One of those places that didn't ask for insurance, didn't call cops, and didn't keep records. The doctor took one look at Rook and swore under his breath. This isn't random, the doctor muttered. This looks engineered. Maren's stomach tightened. Engineered how? The doctor didn't answer her. He looked at Rook's men. He needs surgery. Now. And if he loses too much blood... Rook's head turned slightly. His voice was a whisper of steel. No one knows. The guard nodded quickly. No one. Maren realized something chilling. They weren't just trying to save Rook. They were trying to stop the world from seeing him weak. And while the doctor worked, Maren sat in the dim waiting room, hands stained with someone else's blood, heart thudding like it wanted out. Rook's lieutenant, Silas Venn, a man with calm eyes and a shark's smile, sat beside her. You're brave, Silas said. Or stupid, Maren replied. Silas's smile widened. Same thing in Harbour City. Maren stared at her shoes. He's going to wake up and punish me for talking back. Silas leaned in, voice gentle. Or he's going to hire you. Maren laughed once. It sounded wrong. Why would he hire a waitress? Silas's eyes glinted. Because you didn't run. Because you can keep your face calm when the devil bleeds. And because you might be useful. A beat. What do you want? Maren asked. Silas's voice softened further like velvet over a knife. Rook needs people around him he can trust. People who aren't already in the game. Maren's throat went dry. Trust isn't what your world does. Silas shrugged. Then call it insurance. Just then, the doctor emerged, mask lowered, expression grim. He'll live, the doctor said. But whatever caused that internal rupture, if it happens again, he may not. Silas's smile vanished. Maren felt the room tilt. Someone had tried to break the unbreakable man, and whoever did it knew exactly where to strike, not his body, his power. The doctor's words hung in the air like a threat. Not an accident. Engineered. Calculated. Personal. What kind of enemies did Rook have that they'd rather humiliate him than kill him outright? And what would happen to the waitress who saw him fall? You've witnessed a moment no one was meant to see. The most powerful man in Harbour City brought to his knees, and only you know how vulnerable he truly is. Can you really walk away now? Subscribe to follow this dangerous path with us. After all, you're already part of this story, aren't you? Rook woke the next day in a curtained room that smelled like antiseptic and old money. His eyes opened sharp, alert, as if sleep was a tactical error. Maren was the first face he saw. He stared at her like she was a threat he hadn't calculated. You're still here, he said hoarsely. I didn't want to leave you alone with your own personality, she said. A flicker of something almost amusement crossed his face and disappeared. Why did you help? He asked. Maren hesitated. The truth was complicated, because she'd seen too many people die while everyone watched, because fear had ruled her life once, and she'd sworn it never would again. Because, in the split second he collapsed, she saw not a monster, but a man who looked surprised that pain could touch him. She chose a safer answer. Because it was the right thing. Rook's gaze narrowed. No one does the right thing for free, Maren swallowed. Then I guess I'm overcharging. He shifted, winced. Under the bandages and bruised skin, he looked human. Angry about it, but human. Silas entered with a folder. We traced last night's broker problem, he said. The missing container? Not missing. Rook's voice hardened. Where is it? Silas hesitated. It's been rerouted. Someone with dock access signed it out. Rook's eyes went cold. Who? Silas's jaw tightened. Someone close. Maren felt a shiver crawl up her spine. Close meant inside. Inside meant betrayal. Rook turned his head toward the window, rainwater streaking down glass like tears. Someone wants me to look weak, he murmured. Maren's voice came out before she could stop it. Or they want you dead. Rook looked at her again. And what do you want, Maren, from the Blue Lantern? Maren met his stare. I want to go back to my life. Rook's smile was thin. That's not how this works. In those 5 words, Maren heard her future changing. Not a request. A fact. She had crossed a line last night, stepped into a world where rules were different, where helping a bleeding man wasn't charity, it was choosing sides. In the hallway, men with guns guarded the exits. Outside, rain continued to fall. And somewhere in Harbour City, someone was waiting to hear if the Great Rook had survived their first attack. The game had changed. And Maren was now a player, whether she wanted to be or not. You feel it, don't you? The danger closing in around them both. The secret still hidden beneath the surface. You've come this far, seen the man behind the myth, witnessed the beginning of something neither of them expected. Can you really leave now, knowing what's at stake? Subscribe to stay with us on this journey. They need you. The truth needs you. That night, Maren tried to leave. She made it to the clinic's back exit before 2 men stepped out of the shadows. They weren't Rooks. Their coats were wrong, their eyes were wrong. One lifted his hand, showing a ring with a carved serpent. Maren's blood turned to ice. The Serpent Court, a rival faction that specialized in quiet deaths and public humiliation. You're the waitress, the man said, voice smooth. Oh, the one who touched fate last night, Maren backed up. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you do, he said. You saved him. He smiled. Now you'll help us finish him. A hand clamped over Maren's mouth. She kicked, fought, but the world narrowed to panic and the stink of wool coats. Then a gunshot cracked. The grip loosened. Maren stumbled, gasping, only to see Rook's guard aiming at the man with the serpent ring. Silas stepped from the shadows last, calm as ever. You can't take what belongs to us, Silas said. The serpent ring man coughed blood and laughed. Belongs to you? She belongs to the truth. And the truth is, your boss isn't sick by chance. Silas's eyes hardened. Stop talking. The serpent man's smile widened with dying joy. Ask him about the container labelled C-17. Ask him who's really pulling the strings. Then his eyes went glassy. Maren stood frozen, rain soaking her hair. Rook's men dragged her back inside. And for the first time, Maren realized saving Rook hadn't pulled her into danger. It had marked her. The clinic suddenly felt like a trap. Walls too close, air too thick, guards watching her with new eyes, not protecting her, containing her. What's container C-17? She asked Silas. His face showed nothing. A problem. Was he telling the truth about Rook being poisoned? Silas studied her like she was a puzzle with missing pieces. Why would you care? Maren swallowed hard. Because I just killed a man by helping yours. Silas's mouth curved slightly. You didn't kill anyone. I did. But they both knew what she meant. Her choices had consequences now. Blood-soaked ones. Back in Rook's room, she found him awake, pale but focused. Like a predator conserving energy. They came for you, he said. Not a question. This is just the beginning, and I know you're already invested. You can't leave these characters hanging, can you? Subscribe now so you won't miss how this story unfolds. You're already here. Don't turn away. Now. Maren nodded. The Serpent Court. Something flashed in Rook's eyes. Not surprise, but confirmation. He'd expected this. They want me to help finish you, she said. Rook's gaze didn't waver. And will you? Maren's heart pounded. I don't even know what that means. Rook shifted, sitting straighter despite the pain. It means they've been planning this. It means this isn't random. He looked toward the window, where city lights blurred through rain-streaked glass. It means, he said quietly, I've been betrayed. Rook summoned Maren to his room. He looked stronger, but the anger in him had shifted, less explosive, more deliberate, like someone carving revenge into stone. "You were attacked because of me," he said. Maren crossed her arms. "You think?" Rook leaned forward. "You have two choices." Maren's stomach sank. "Here we go. 1. I pay you, you disappear, and you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, hoping the Serpent Court forgets your face." Maren's throat tightened. 2, Rook continued, "you stay, under my protection, until I end this." Maren laughed bitterly. "Protection? In your world, protection is a leash." Rook's gaze didn't flinch. "Sometimes a leash is the only thing keeping you alive." Maren stared at him, heart pounding. "Why would you care if I live?" For a second, Rook's composure cracked, just enough to reveal something raw. "Because you did what no one else did," he said quietly. "You saw me fall, and you didn't try to use it." Maren didn't know what to do with that. Outside the curtain, she heard Silas's footsteps pause, listening. Maren made her choice anyway. "I'll stay," she said, "but I'm not your pet. I'm your witness." Rook's mouth twitched. "Fine, be my witness." And just like that, a waitress became the most dangerous woman in Harbour City. The deal was struck without paper, without lawyers, just two people with eyes locked and fates tied. Rook explained the terms with cold precision. She would live in his compound, protected, watched. She would help him find who poisoned him, help him understand why the name C-17 mattered. "Sure, and then?" Maren asked. "Then you go back to your life," Rook said. But his eyes said something different. They said there was no going back. "You've seen how high the stakes are now. But this is just the beginning. What happens next will change everything. Subscribe now and stay with us. You won't want to miss what's coming. Can you walk away now, knowing you've come this far?" That night, a car took her to her apartment to collect her things. 2 guards waited while she packed a small bag. Her life fit into so little space: waitress uniforms, a few books, a photo of her mother. As she zipped the bag closed, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Same face, same eyes. But something had changed. Yesterday she'd been invisible, just another server in a city full of them. Today she was seen, by the most dangerous man in Harbour City. And by his enemies. The car pulled away from her old life, tires hissing on wet pavement. Ahead lay Rook's world, a place of power and shadows. Behind lay safety and anonymity. Maren watched the rain-blurred city pass by, knowing one truth with certainty. Neither she nor Rook would emerge from this unchanged. Rook's mansion wasn't a mansion. It was a fortress pretending to be art. Maren moved through it like a guest and a prisoner at once. She saw quiet rooms full of files, coded ledgers, imported paintings, and people who smiled too politely. One night, she found a locked door ajar. Inside, a wall of photographs. Not trophies, evidence, crime scenes, missing people, names, dates, locations. At the center was a photo of a younger Maren standing outside a diner. Her breath stopped. Behind her, a man walked into frame, face blurred, but posture unmistakable, a man with a serpent ring. Maren's hands shook. Silas appeared behind her like a shadow. "Curious," he said. Maren spun. "Why do you have that?" Silas's smile was unreadable. "Because Rook investigates threats." "This isn't investigation," Maren snapped. "This is surveillance." Silas stepped closer. "Tell me something, Maren. Did you really just happen to be at the Blue Lantern the night Rook collapsed?" Maren's mouth went dry, because the truth was, she had chosen that shift. She had requested to work Table 9. She had known Rook sometimes came there. She told herself it was to see the monster up close. But deeper down, she had been looking for something else. A name, a clue, a way to bring justice to a past she'd buried. Silas leaned in, voice velvet. You have your own reasons for being here." Maren didn't blink. "So do you." A long beat. Then Silas smiled wider. "Careful. Smart women die first in this world." And Maren realized The most dangerous man in the mansion might not be Rook. It might be the one who smiled. Later, alone in her room, Maren stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead. Her thoughts raced faster. The photo proved Rook knew about her past, or at least suspected. She'd been careful for years. Changed her name. Moved cities. Built a new life from nothing. All to escape the shadow of that serpent ring. A knock at her door. Soft. Almost hesitant. Rook stood there, leaning against the frame, looking more human in simple clothes. Still dangerous, but differently so. "You found the room," he said. Maren nodded. "You knew who I was." "Well, before the blue lantern?" Rook's eyes were steady. "I know everyone who gets close to me. I wasn't close to you. You were closer than you think." His gaze held hers, and something unspoken passed between them. A recognition of shared damage, of walls built for protection. The truth was waiting to be spoken. "I know you're feeling the tension rising between them. Their secrets are just beginning to surface. Will you stay to discover what connects them?" What drove Maren to seek out Rook in the first place? Subscribe now to follow their dangerous journey together. The truth is waiting for you. Rook started having episodes, short bursts of pain that left him pale and furious. The doctor warned him it could recur. Rook didn't rest. He hunted. Maren became his unexpected partner because she noticed things his men didn't. Who avoided eye contact? Who lingered too long near the medicine cabinet? Who asked the wrong questions? One evening, she saw Silas slip into the security room alone. Minutes later, the cameras glitched. Only for 30 seconds. 30 seconds was long enough for a gun to appear where it shouldn't. Long enough for poison to be swapped. Long enough for a man like Rook to die. Maren told Rook. Rook listened without interrupting, eyes like black glass. When she finished, he said only one sentence. "Don't accuse someone unless you can prove it." Maren's voice shook. "You think I want to be right?" Rook stood, wincing but steady. "Then we set a trap." They did. A fake shipment. A decoy container labelled C-17. The same label the dying serpent man mentioned. They leaked the route inside the mansion. Only 3 people heard it. Rook, Maren, and Silas. The next night, the convoy was ambushed by men wearing serpent rings. Maren watched from a distance as chaos erupted, tires screeching, gunfire flashing like lightning, men shouting into radios. Rook's jaw tightened. He didn't rage. He didn't shout. He simply nodded once as if confirming a sad fact. "It's him," Maren whispered. Rook's voice was ice. "Yes." And then the real twist hit. Rook didn't order Silas killed. He ordered him brought in alive. The revelation hung between them in the cold night air. Betrayal was one thing in Rook's world, common, even expected. But from Silas, his right hand, his closest ally, it cut deeper than the poison ever could. Back at the mansion, Rook moved like a storm gathering. Guards doubled, doors locked. The house felt like it was holding its breath. In the study, Rook poured 2 drinks and handed one to Maren. "Tell me now," he said quietly. "Why were you at the Blue Lantern that night? The real reason." Maren took the glass, felt its weight. The amber liquid caught the light like trapped fire. 5 years ago, she began, voice barely steady. "My younger sister disappeared. Last seen with a man wearing a serpent ring." Rook's eyes never left her face. "The police called it a runaway case, but I knew." She took a sip, felt the burn. "I tracked that ring to Harbour City, to the Serpent Court, and eventually, to the Blue Lantern, where they sometimes meet." "You were hunting them," Rook said. Not a question. Maren nodded. "Then you collapsed, and suddenly I was in the middle of a war I didn't choose. A war that might lead me to the truth." Rook set down his glass. "The Serpent Court doesn't leave witnesses." "Neither do you," Maren said. Something changed in Rook's expression, a softening that looked almost like respect. "Your sister," he said. "What was her name?" "Lily." Rook nodded once. "Tomorrow, Silas pays for his betrayal, and then we find Lily." A promise made in the quiet of night, between a mafia boss and a waitress, between two broken people with nothing left to lose. I see you're still here, still invested in their story. The truth is unfolding now, both their pasts connecting in ways neither of them expected. Will you stay with us to witness what happens next, to see justice finally served? Subscribe now. Don't leave Maren and Rook to face this danger alone. Silas was dragged into the basement, hands bound, suit torn, smile gone. Rook stood over him, calm in a terrifying way. Why? Rook asked. Silas laughed, breathless. Because you got sloppy. Because you started believing you were untouchable. Rook's gaze tightened. I made you. Silas spat blood. And you made enemies. The Serpent Court offered me a throne. Maren's heart pounded. You tried to kill him. Silas's eyes flicked to her. Not kill. Break. He turned back to Rook. You know what really terrifies people? Not death. Weakness. The rumour that the great Rook can be brought to his knees. Rook's fist clenched, but his voice stayed quiet. So you engineered it. Silas's smile returned, smaller now, meaner. You didn't collapse by accident. You were dosed, carefully, slowly, enough to make you fail at the worst possible moment. Maren felt sick. It wasn't about money, it was about humiliation, control. A story that would spread through the underworld like fire. The boss can be broken. Rook leaned closer. And C-17? Silas's eyes glinted. The container you never found, because it never left. It's been in your hands the whole time. Maren's breath caught. What's in it? Silas smiled. Evidence. Rook's face didn't move. Evidence of what? Silas's voice dropped. Of the deal you made years ago to survive. The deal that could put you in a cage for life? Maren's mind raced. Real life wasn't clean. People survived by taking dirty bargains. But if Rook had done something that caused innocents to suffer, Rook straightened. Bring the container. The men did. They opened it. Inside wasn't drugs. It wasn't money. It was a ledger, photos, recordings, proof tying the Serpent Court to trafficking, extortion and murders. And proof that Silas had been managing it behind Rook's back. But there was more. A file labelled with Maren's name. Her knees went weak. Rook picked it up, eyes scanning. Then he looked at her, something soft and haunted briefly breaking through. Maren, he said quietly, the man with the serpent ring, the one in your photograph. Maren swallowed. He's the reason I changed my name, Silas laughed. She's not just a waitress, boss. She's a survivor. And she came looking for you. Maren's voice trembled, but she stood tall. I came looking for the people who ruined my family. I didn't know you were going to be in the middle of it. Rook stared at the evidence, at the years of violence hiding inside his own organization. His voice came out rough. You were trying to get justice. Maren nodded, tears burning. I wanted the truth. I wanted someone to pay. Silas leaned back, smiling. Now you both lose. Turn me in, and your empire collapses. Don't, and she'll die eventually. The Serpent Court doesn't forgive. The basement felt smaller. The air felt sharper. Rook's world and Maren's world had collided, and both demanded blood. You've reached the moment where everything changes, where secrets long buried have finally surfaced. Don't you want to know what Rook will choose? Justice for Maren or protection of his empire? Subscribe now if you believe everyone deserves the truth, no matter how painful. The hardest choices are still ahead, and they need you there when they make them. Rook made a choice that shocked everyone. He handed the evidence to a person Maren didn't recognize, an older woman who walked in like she belonged. Rook nodded once. In Director Hale? Maren's eyes widened. Law enforcement? The woman's expression was carved from granite. Not the kind you bribe. Silas's smile faltered. Rook's voice was steady. Years ago, I made a deal to keep my younger brother from being killed in prison. I fed information to certain people. I told myself it was survival. He looked at Maren. But survival doesn't excuse what I allowed to grow in my shadow. Director Hale opened the file, eyes narrowing as she read. This is enough to dismantle the Serpent Court. And Silas, Rook added. Silas thrashed, fury breaking through. You can't do this. You'll burn with me. Rook leaned down, voice low enough to cut. You wanted me weak. Here's the truth, Silas. He held Silas's gaze. My strength was never fear. Rook's eyes flicked to Marin. It was the decision to finally do the right thing, even if it costs me everything. Silas's face contorted. You'll die in a cell. Rook straightened. Then at least I'll die knowing you didn't win. The room fell silent. Marin stared at Rook, seeing him truly for the first time, not as the feared boss who'd threatened a man at her restaurant, but as someone capable of sacrifice. Of change. Director Hale's team moved efficiently, securing evidence, photographing documents, preparing transport for Silas. In the chaos, Rook found Marin. The file has information about your sister, he said quietly. Photos, locations, names. Marin's heart stuttered. Is she alive? Rook said. In a witness protection program. She escaped them 3 years ago. Tears blurred Marin's vision. She's safe? Rook nodded. Director Hale can arrange contact. Marin's voice broke. Why are you doing this? You're giving up everything. Rook looked at her, something naked and honest in his gaze. Maybe I was tired of the man I'd become, he said. Maybe I needed someone to see me fall, to remember I could stand up differently. His hand brushed hers, brief, barely there, but somehow more intimate than anything Marin had felt before. You'll be taken into protective custody, he said. You'll testify against Silas and the Serpent Court, and then you'll see your sister. Marin's fingers caught his. And you? Rook's smile was small, sad. I pay for my choices. Across the room, Director Hale watched them, her face unreadable. It's time, she called. Rook stepped back, hands open at his sides, surrendering not just to justice, but to the possibility of redemption. And Marin realized something that changed everything. The most feared man in Harbour City had just given up his empire, his freedom, his very identity. To do the one thing no one expected. The right thing. You've witnessed a moment of true courage. Not the kind that comes from power or fear, but the kind that comes from choosing what's right when it costs you everything. Will you abandon Rook and Marin now, just when they've risked it all? Subscribe to see if sacrifice leads to redemption. Their story isn't over. It's only beginning to reveal its heart. The takedown happened fast. Raids at dawn, docks seized, accounts frozen, safe houses breached. But the Serpent Court didn't go quietly. They came for Marin. A car tried to force her off the road on a rain-slick bridge. Metal screamed, glass shattered. Marin's hands gripped the wheel, heart slamming. Then headlights cut through the storm, Rook's SUV slamming into the attacker's side and shoving it into the guardrail. Rook stepped out into the rain like a man walking into judgment. He pulled Marin from her crushed car, his hands gentle despite the chaos. You should be in custody, she gasped. He looked at her, eyes fierce. I will be. He cupped her face, brief, careful, like he was memorizing her existence. I'm not letting them take you as a final insult. Gunfire erupted. Rook's men returned fire. Sirens wailed in the distance. Director Hale's team arriving. The serpent attackers fled. Marin stood shaking, rain soaking her skin, staring at Rook. You're doing this for me, she whispered. Rook's mouth tightened. I'm doing it because you reminded me I was still human. For a moment, the city noise faded. Then Director Hale approached, cuffs in hand. Rook extended his wrists. No struggle, no speech, just a quiet surrender. Marin's throat tightened. Is this the end? Rook's eyes held hers. No, it's the beginning of paying my debt. He was led away into the flashing lights, and Marin realized something devastating and hopeful. She hadn't rescued a Mafia boss. She'd pulled a man back from the edge, long enough for him to choose redemption. And he, in turn, had given her the one thing she'd been searching for since the night her sister vanished. The chance to breathe without fear. the chance to find truth, the chance to live, instead of just survive. Rain washed the blood from the bridge, evidence teams gathered shell casings. And two broken people who'd saved each other were taken in separate cars, one to protective custody, one to face the consequences of an empire built on fear. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't holding on, it's letting go, even when it costs you everything. The story of Rook and Maren isn't just about danger and romance. It's about finding the courage to change, to save someone else even when it means losing everything. Can you really walk away now without seeing where their journey leads? Subscribe to witness what happens next. Some stories stay with you forever. This might be one of them. Months later, the Serpent Court was dismantled. Victims were found. Families got answers. Silas testified, trying to bargain, but the evidence was too thick. He didn't get a throne, he got a cage. Maren sat in court with Director Hale, our hands clasped, listening to names read aloud, names that had once been only whispers. Justice wasn't cinematic, it was heavy, it was slow, but it was real. When the judge finally sentenced Silas, Maren felt something in her chest loosen, like a knot untying after years. Afterward, Maren visited Rook once. Prison visitation was a cold room with colder chairs. He walked in wearing plain clothes, looking smaller without his empire, yet somehow steadier. Maren slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" he asked. "Restaurant lease," she said. "The Blue Lantern is for sale." Rook blinked, confused. Maren's mouth trembled into a half smile. "I'm buying it. Turning it into a place that helps survivors get work and legal support, a place where fear doesn't get to own the room." Rook stared at her, something like wonder flickering. "Oh, you're building a life," he murmured. Maren nodded. "And you? When you get out someday, if you choose to." Rook's eyes softened. "I don't deserve—" Maren cut him off. "I didn't say you did. I said you can choose what you become next." A long silence. Then Rook's voice came quiet. "I think I'd like to earn it." Maren stood, heart aching. At the door, she paused. "One more thing," she said. Rook looked up. Maren's gaze locked on his. "The night you fell, you weren't the devil." Rook's throat worked. "What was I?" Maren's voice softened. A man who finally stopped pretending he couldn't be hurt. She left before her tears could win. Behind her, the door clanged shut. But this time it didn't sound like an ending. It sounded like a promise. Outside, spring sunlight touched the prison walls. Maren walked to a waiting car where Director Hale stood, holding another file. "Ready to see your sister?" Hale asked. Maren nodded, unable to speak past the hope in her throat. Sometimes justice takes years. Sometimes healing takes longer. And sometimes the most unexpected people show us the way back to ourselves. This story might seem finished, but the journey of healing and redemption has only begun. Will you join us for what comes next? Subscribe now to witness their path forward, because the most beautiful stories are those where broken people find their way back to wholeness, even when the road seems impossible. 6 months after Rook's surrender, the Blue Lantern reopened its doors. Same blue neon sign, same jazz piano. Different purpose. Maren stood behind the bar, watching survivors serve tables. Women and men who'd escaped trafficking. Former witnesses who'd lost everything to testify. People rebuilding lives shattered by the Serpent Court. The restaurant wasn't just a business now. It was a sanctuary, a place to heal, a place to begin again. Director Hale sat at the corner table nursing a coffee. She slid a sealed envelope across to Maren. "This arrived at my office," Hale said, "addressed to you." Inside was a photo of a powerful city official shaking hands with a man wearing a serpent ring, written across the back in neat handwriting, "The roots go deeper." Maren's pulse quickened. Where did this come from? Hale's eyes narrowed. Prison mail. Screened, of course. Rook. Even behind bars, he was fighting, sending pieces of a puzzle Maren was just beginning to see. That night, she visited him. His eyes lit up when he saw her, a brief flash quickly controlled. "The photo," she said. Rook nodded. "Mayor Colton. He's been receiving payments for years. From the Serpent Court? From someone who controls them." Rook leaned forward. "Did you notice the recent accidents? Witnesses changing testimony? Evidence disappearing?" Maren had. 3 key witnesses against the Serpent Court had withdrawn statements after mysterious car accidents. A storage facility with records had burned down. Someone was cleaning house. Someone with power. "Be careful," Rook said. "The lantern is making waves, helping too many people, asking too many questions." Maren's jaw tightened. "I'm not stopping." Rook's mouth curved slightly. "I didn't think you would." Their hands rested on the table, inches apart, so close, never touching. Rules. "How much longer?" she asked. 5 years with good behavior, he said, if nothing changes. If the hidden powers didn't decide he was too dangerous to release, if he survived that long. Maren left the prison with determination burning in her chest. The Blue Lantern was becoming more than a restaurant. It was becoming a symbol, and symbols made powerful people nervous. That night, she found her office door ajar. Someone had been through her files. The message was clear: stop digging. But Maren had spent years searching for her sister, years fighting for truth. She wasn't about to stop now, even if it meant facing an enemy still hidden in the shadows, an enemy who could reach into prisons, courtrooms, and City Hall, an enemy who thought they'd won. You've seen how the battle for justice continues, even after the courtroom doors close. And Maren and Rook are still fighting, each in their own way, against powers that hide in plain sight. Don't you want to know who's really pulling the strings? Subscribe now to follow their dangerous path to the truth. Some enemies are too powerful to face alone. The letter arrived on prison stationery, official seal gleaming. Rook read it twice, face giving nothing away. Early release, good behavior, community service. All he had to do was sign a statement. He never saw Mayor Colton with the Serpent Court, never witnessed any high-level corruption, never knew of connections between city officials and criminal enterprises. Just 3 signatures to walk free, 3 lies to save himself. The guard waited. "Well, you signing or what?" Rook folded the paper carefully. "I need time to consider." Across the city, Maren stood before the Harbour City Planning Commission, hands steady despite her racing heart. "The Blue Lantern has been declared a public nuisance," the chairman announced. "Multiple violations of capacity, noise ordinances, and safety codes. All false, all suddenly appearing after she'd hung that photo of Mayor Colton in her office. You have 30 days to vacate," the chairman continued, "or face seizure under eminent domain." Maren's voice cut through the room. "This is harassment." The chairman didn't even look up. "This is law." Later, rain pounded the restaurant windows as Maren paced her office. 30 days to save everything she'd built, everything those survivors relied on. Her phone rang. Unknown number. A voice she recognized, one of Rook's former lieutenants. "He said you might need help," the voice said. "Said to remind you that sometimes a leash is the only thing keeping you alive." Maren closed her eyes. Rook was reaching out, offering his old network, the very thing she'd fought against, the very thing she might now need. "There's a standoff coming," the voice continued. "You'll need protection." "I don't work with criminals," Maren said. "No," the voice agreed, "but we work with Rook, and Rook works with you." The line went dead. That night, Maren visited the prison again. "You can't save the lantern by becoming what we fought," she said. Rook's eyes were tired but determined. "Sometimes you need fire to fight fire. And sometimes fire burns everyone." Rook slid a piece of paper across the table. The early release offer. Maren's breath caught. "They're trying to buy your silence," Rook nodded. "Freedom has a price. Truth has a higher one." "What will you do?" His gaze held hers. What would you do? The answer hung between them, because they both knew. Neither would compromise, neither would bend, not anymore. 3 days later, the Blue Lantern hosted a charity dinner. Press crowded the entrance. City officials arrived in sleek cars. Mayor Colton himself stepped out, camera flashes highlighting his practiced smile. He froze when he saw Maren waiting at the door. Beside her stood Director Hale and 12 former Serpent Court victims, each holding a photo, each with a story, each ready to speak. The mayor's face hardened. "You're making a mistake." Maren didn't flinch. "No, my mistake was being afraid." Inside, cameras rolled. Microphones captured every word. Survivors stepped forward one by one, and the empire built on silence began to crumble. The danger isn't over. It's only becoming more visible. Maren has chosen to fight in the open while Rook faces an impossible choice behind bars. Will you leave them now just when everything hangs in the balance? Subscribe to witness the final confrontation. The truth demands witnesses, and some battles can't be fought alone. The testimony room was silent except for the scratch of pens on paper. Rook sat at the centre table, hands steady as he signed his statement. Not the early release papers, the truth. Every detail about Mayor Colton, every meeting with the Serpent Court, every bribe, every threat, every midnight deal that kept the corruption hidden for decades. Director Hale watched from the corner, face grim. "You understand what this means," she said. "No early release, possible retaliation." Rook didn't look up. "I understand exactly what it means." Across the city, the Blue Lantern was surrounded, not by police, not by criminals, by people, former victims, reporters, citizens tired of living under the shadow of corruption. Maren stood at the entrance, heart pounding as Mayor Colton's car pulled up. His security team pushed through the crowd, creating a path. The mayor's smile was cold. "Quite a show you've arranged." Maren matched his stare. "Not a show, a reckoning." Inside, cameras waited. Testimony waited. Truth waited. But power doesn't surrender easily. As the mayor reached the doors, his security suddenly moved, not to protect, but to attack. Glass shattered. People screamed. Guns appeared where there shouldn't have been guns. This wasn't security, this was the last gasp of the Serpent Court. Maren was shoved against the wall. Ara hand at her throat. "You should have stayed a waitress," the mayor hissed. Then a voice cut through the chaos. "And you should have stayed away from her." Rook stood in the doorway, Director Hale beside him, federal agents flooding in behind them. The mayor's face drained of colour. "You're supposed to be in prison." Rook's smile was sharp. "I am. Special transport for a special testimony." His eyes found Maren's. One look that said everything. "I'm here. I chose this. I chose you." The federal agents moved quickly, disarming the fake security team. Handcuffs clicked around wrists that had once signed laws, once ordered deaths, once believed themselves untouchable. Mayor Colton struggled as they led him away. "This changes nothing. I still own this city." Rook stepped closer to Maren. He close enough to feel her breath, but not close enough to touch. "Not yet." "No," he said quietly. "You never owned it. You just made people afraid to take it back." After the arrests, after the statements, after the cameras left, Maren and Rook stood alone in the quiet of the Blue Lantern. "You'll go back," she said, not a question. Rook nodded. 3 more years, but with the mayor's network exposed, it'll be safer inside now. Maren's fingers brushed his hand, a touch so light it could have been imagination. "I'll be here," she said, "building something worth coming back to." Rook's eyes softened. "You already have." They stood in silence, 2 people who'd saved each other in different ways, who'd chosen the harder path when easier ones were offered. "The night I collapsed," Rook said. "I thought it was the end." Maren shook her head. It was the beginning. And they both knew it was true. Not a happily ever after, not yet, but a chance, a promise, a road forward through the ruins of what they'd torn down together. As the transport van waited to take Rook back to prison, he paused at the doorway of the Blue Lantern. "Next time I walk through that door," he said, "I won't be the devil anymore." Maren smiled, eyes bright with unshed tears. You never were. Their story wasn't over. It was just beginning. We've witnessed their journey from fear to courage, from darkness to a new kind of light. But their path to redemption has only just begun. Will you join us for what comes next? Subscribe now to follow their story as they build something beautiful from the ashes of what they destroyed. Some love stories don't end with a kiss. They end with a promise of a better tomorrow. Don't miss what happens next.